What's going on, guys? Hope you're all doing well. Now for today's video, I wanted to go over an old piece of Jurassic Park history from the 90s. This is the sequel to the Raptor storyline we've already covered on the channel. It came out around 1995 and ended in 96, but the story is not only a sequel to the Raptor stuff, but also a prequel to the original Jurassic Park movie. Now, this one had a lot of ups and downs, and some of the best stuff from the Topps canon is in this run. But there was also a big shakeup that compromised a lot of stuff that happened in its development, which we'll go over when we get to those parts of the story. And also, there might just be some inspiration for the protagonist of the new video game Jurassic Park Survival in this series. But again, we'll get there when we get there. With all that being said, as promised, today we're going to begin the sequel to the Jurassic Park Raptor storyline. I know it's been a long wait, so I'm just going to jump right into it. The return to Jurassic Park starts now. A lone man is pulled onto the deck of a passing ship out at sea. The poor soul is uttering the mysterious words, "green flame," over and over again. He's clearly seen better days. The men who've taken the survivor on board of their vessel begin to notice that he's not just an ordinary fisherman, but an American soldier. What could he possibly be doing out here near Costa Rica? Their guest keeps saying the words "green flame" while they tend to him. It's unfortunate that sharks seem to have eaten through most of his legs. And the shipmates debate on where exactly this guy came from. Apart from Costa Rica itself, the only thing all the way out here is some little island called Isla Nublar. We now meet up with John Hammond and his aide Edgar in Palo Alto, California. Edgar fills John in on the news of the fishermen dragging the badly injured militant from the Costa Rican waters, which prompts the billionaire to check in on the help he hired after the events of Jurassic Park. Hammond calls General West and begins the conversation by explaining a lucrative business deal he's just come across, and tells the man he's put in charge that he will be stopping by Jurassic Park soon to check on the dinosaurs' containment process. The General at first welcomes this visit, but then insists that Hammond not come to the island as of yet. He states that they're still putting the finishing touches on the dino pins and that the skies are filled with too many aircraft for a proper welcome for the owner of Nublar, and lets John know that he will call him when they're finished here. Engine CEO lets West know that's quite alright and to continue doing his work before hanging up the phone and letting Edgar know that he's quite aware that General West is undoubtedly lying. He actually goes one step further and believes that their man down there has more than likely been bought due to such a bogus report, and tells Edgar to get somebody onto his island immediately. The following day, a plane is sent to fly over Isla Nublar by Hammond himself, and the pilot of this aircraft hails the military down on the ground for a requested landing. The pilot tells the military occupiers of the island that he is losing altitude fast and needs clearance to land ASAP, but is rather surprised to get the response of deadly force promised if the plane begins to land. Needless to say, this angers John Hammond. Edgar offers a solution to the matter by sending in the same elite unit to Nublar that he used to attack BioSyn's forces, but Hammond doesn't want to risk the lives of any of his dinosaurs and says he wants Edgar to go there personally, but also says that they are going to need specialists on this matter. Back in Costa Rica, Alan Grant receives a phone call while sleeping alongside a pool with Muldoon, Sattler, and Malcolm present. He's delighted to hear Mr. Hammond's voice on the other line at first, and then almost immediately enraged at the request the park owner gives him. But after filling in the paleontologist on what exactly is happening on the dinosaur island, Grant becomes interested and says he's going to need to speak to the others about what's going on. We jump forward 3 days later and meet up with Alan, Ellie, Muldoon, and Ian inside of a water vessel, all equipped with scuba gear and in possession of submersible motorized devices. Grant makes it well known to John that this is going to cost a lot of money. Hammond is fine with that demand and lets the doctors know that Jurassic Park was supposed to be the testament to the power and dreams of mankind. Bringing back dinosaurs and revealing them to the world would have changed mankind's view of the planet completely, and Hammond's park could yet save the planet in some way in the future. This is why he's prepared to do anything necessary to protect it. Malcolm agrees with Hammond's speech and asks why he's being barred from going to the island. John lets the chaotician know that he's neither a commando nor a dinosaur expert and that he's also just recovered from fever, but Malcolm fails to understand why this makes him sidelined. Edgar joins the others in climbing out of the vehicle they've been inside of, which reveals their location to be underneath Nublar's waters, and after turning on lights to see where they would be going, the four make their way towards the underwater cave George Lawala used when he succeeded in stealing the raptors from Jurassic Park. After emerging on the other side, Ellie talks to Alan about their current situation. This is where they last left Nublar, and it's the very place they've come back to. Grant admits that the two have been through quite a lot lately. Muldoon agrees after hearing their discussion and openly lets his wariness of Edgar be known. Hammond's aide responds with Robert being the best man alive in dealing with dinosaurs, but Edgar fancies himself the best at dealing with other men, and reassures Muldoon that he'll stay out of the hunter's way, and that he's only here to safeguard his employer's interests. Now, our protagonists begin their trek on Isla Nublar. The ground gives the impression that no one has been along this path in weeks, and Sattler suggests that the cave is probably being kept unguarded due to the army being under the impression that they were kidnapped along the beach. She ponders on the exact location they're currently at, and recalls back to the kiss they shared before Luala took them off the island. Edgar doesn't have time for these trivial matters, however, and takes out a topographical map of Nublar. He wants to get to high ground and look for whatever this green flame is. They decide the best route to take is through open ground and away from the dinosaur pens and army, but are shocked to be among the presence of a loose Stegosaurus on the island. Grant grabs a rock and hurls it at the creature's head immediately after seeing the dinosaur, which causes the large titan to begin its lumber back into the underbrush and away from its visitors. Edgar calls Alan insane after this happens, but Grant lets the man know that stegosaurs are like overgrown turtles and that they're not dangerous to humans at all. Hammond's aide accepts this remark but insists on continuing their journey for high ground. They then begin to push forward and make their trek for this destination. But the group can't help to wonder why this dinosaur was out of its pen in the first place, before they all hear the familiar noise of helicopter blades in the wind. Instinctively taking cover, Grant and the others observe huge sophisticated choppers passing over their heads, and recall how often they'd had to dodge such machines in recent times. After waiting for all of the copters to clear, they begin to follow them, and the group soon turns into a canyon, where they're greeted by the Tyrannosaurus itself. Edgar goes for his pistol and tells the others to get their tranq guns out, but Muldoon intercepts this gesture and Grant tells the group to stay completely still. The Rex searches for the tiny new visitors it's just seen while eating its kill, but decides to go back to eating after being unable to locate them. Grant tells the others to back out quietly and quickly while they have the chance, and upon exiting the canyon, the group races out of the area as fast as they can, and their footsteps draws the attention of the Rex once again. Quickly, the humans dart for a tall tree near to their position and remain motionless against the trunk of this hiding place. The Rex takes a closer look this time, but again decides to continue its meal. After the Tyrannosaur leaves, Edgar apologizes for causing the situation to transpire, but the scientists tell him it's not his fault and state that they should have briefed him on the dinosaurs before they got there. But the question is also raised now as to why the dinosaurs are still loose on the island anyway. The army is supposed to have gotten them back into all of their pens by now. Edgar then remarks that the military more than likely doesn't care and puts the blame of this mystery squarely on them. If there is some secret project called the Green Flame on this island, why not let the dinosaurs play guard dog and let survival of the fittest resume? Ellie recalls that this was exactly what Raphael wanted to do in Colombia, but also brings up the fact that this is the military they're talking about, and not some petty drug lord. Muldoon begrudgingly agrees with Edgar on this one. It was his job to always make Jurassic Park safe as possible, and even though they failed, it was due to accidents and sabotage, and the lack of security on Nublar is infuriating to him. Sattler still can't believe the army has anything to do with this, and says they need more evidence before they make such an accusation, which prompts Edgar to continue to push the others forward on their mission for high ground. After journeying for an entire day, they finally reach the destination they've set out to find, and look out at the stars over this tropical island, ruled by creatures that have been dead for millions of years. Ellie talks to Alan about how crazy it is to be here. She knows it's for a good cause, but recalls back to their adventures going after Alf and Celia, and how they talked about the raptors being the last two of their kind. This is a game to her between Hammond and the military, or whoever is in real control here. But Alan reassures her that if they don't figure out what's going on here, then who knows what the repercussions of such a mess could possibly be. Suddenly, beams of green shoot out of the sky and down to the earth. They move intensely and stun every member of this group with the alien nature that such a strange sight emits. And then, just as swiftly as the lights appeared, they vanish without a trace. The debate is indeed over. Something is going on Isla Nublar, and it's serious. Muldoon makes his way over to the doctors with something he's just discovered in the palm of his hand, before telling them that he thinks he's found something that gives them a good clue as to what they're dealing with, and opens his fist, revealing a piece of cloth with the word BioSyn inscribed inside. Edgar laments that it's not just the army and dinosaurs they have to contend with, but also their corporate rivals as well. The race for the secret of this island has begun, and they're a full day behind. Now, this is definitely an interesting story. After the Raptor storyline ended, I will admit that I have wanted to see its continuation as soon as possible, and finally being able to find out what happens next is really awesome. I thought that the final issue of the Raptor comic series was lacking in a good resolution and confrontation for that matter, so I'm really happy to jump back into the story with Alan, Ellie, and Muldoon. Edgar seems to be a cool character they're introducing, and I have no doubt that General West is doing some shady stuff on Isla Nublar. I wish Malcolm was joining the others on this particular mission, but I guess the reason they gave for his absence makes enough sense for the sake of the story, so no complaints from me there. All in all, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and it's great to finally get to see a Tyrannosaurus in action and doing something cool again. I really liked this one, and hope you all did too. Let me know what you all thought about this first issue in the comments down below, as I'm curious to see how well it went over with you guys. While walking through the island, Robert Muldoon discusses the discovery of BioSyn's name etched on some clothing at their last campsite. Alan Grant brings up the fact that BioSyn could possibly be working with the military in some sort of covert operation unbeknownst to Mr. Hammond, but Edgar passes this theory off as nothing more than paranoia. Either way, they're trespassing on his employer's island, and any sort of scheming will get them sent away. While this is happening, Muldoon happens to hear the faint sound of helicopter blades in the distance, and in an instant gets to cover with the rest of the group. Sattler remarks that she doesn't like hiding from their own troops, but the others insist hiding to be the only option that makes sense as of yet. Eventually, the choppers pass over our team, and the reason for this surveillance is believed to have been a routine patrol. Grant brings forward the idea that maybe the army isn't aware of BioSyn's presence on the island, and if that were the case, then maybe it was a good idea to hope that they catch BioSyn and end their troubles. Edgar finds this rather childish and states that the troops would only step up security if they found intruders, which would make their job more difficult. This sparks a bit of a conflict between the team as Grant and Sattler bring forward the fact that they're only on the island as dinosaur specialists, and they know nothing of covert special operations like this new ally does. Edgar finds the small bandies in pitiful, but Muldoon assures him that this is far murkier stuff than Alan and Ellie are used to dealing with, and it's illogical to continue bickering about such a pointless topic. Suddenly, Edgar is overcome with fear at the sight of a dinosaur that has walked behind the four of them. He remarks that even he is aware that this animal is a Triceratops. He asks if it's okay to shoot this one in defense, but the game warden makes it abundantly clear that the man couldn't kill a trike with a dozen shots, and that he'd only anger the dinosaur. The Triceratops observes the small group intently, and begins to make its way over to the team. It rubs its beak directly in front of Edgar's face and smells the bushes he's standing in front of, and after letting out a mighty call, begins to dine on the greenery at Edgar's feet. With sweat running down Edgar's brow, the man thankfully declares this encounter as being a lucky close call. With this remark, Alan, Ellie, and Muldoon all fall on the floor of the island in hysterical laughter. This show of hilarity makes the assassin question what this is all about. Grant tells the man that trikes are known the world over as being herbivores, and Ellie lets him know that it only wanted the bush by his feet. Muldoon takes this joking a bit further by citing his high fear in something so obviously non-aggressive. After this encounter is over, the group pushes on and eventually locates a resting site of someone else on the island, and they set out to follow the tracks of these other visitors who've left their presence known. Muldoon hikes up the side of a nearby mountain with the others with the idea of cutting off the people they're stalking in an effective stakeout, and sure enough, a pair of individuals is soon observed passing by the team. The group races down the side of the mountain and plans an ambush in the bushes just shy of these unknown humans. Grant and Ellie are noticeably gassed after their 25-minute descent from the hilltop, which prompts Edgar to tell them to stop breathing so loudly. Alan lets the man know that they're not in bad shape, but they need time to rest as they're not used to this, which gives Edgar the sly rebuttal of everyone having their own unique expertise, and to shut up immediately or he'll do it for them. Edgar and Muldoon stand by as the two people come into view, and in an instant, both of our trained hunters leap from the bushes and hold these new arrivals at gunpoint. Edgar pulls the IDs of the pair and identifies them as Sonia Durant and Raul Lopez. She's a notable female guide, and he happens to be a paleontologist with radical theories. Edgar cuts to the chase and asks what these two are doing here immediately, but he's left with the same question he's just finished asking. After this remark, the man makes it known that they work for InGen, and he needs answers now. Sonia makes a sarcastic greeting to Muldoon, telling him to tell Edgar she's not likely to talk either. Muldoon remarks that she's a tough girl, but she's also a poacher, and he reminds her of what they do to poachers out in the bush. Muldoon tests the two by telling them that their employer BioSyn is responsible for all of this mess as their man Nedry caused all the dinosaurs to break out in the first place. Raul takes the bait and asks why shouldn't BioSyn sabotage InGen and their stooges like Grant. He says that if he could research the dinosaurs, then that his theories would easily be proven, and claims that Grant is fighting to keep all of the discoveries to himself. At this moment, Edgar makes a move to tie Raul's hands behind his back, but is interrupted by a swarm of pterosaurs descending onto the group. Edgar screams pterodactyls and is promptly corrected as seeing pterodactyls in fact. The pair beg for guns to defend themselves, but Edgar turns this idea down instantaneously, while InGen's team fires wildly at the reptilian beasts. Grant shoots one of the flyers with a sly remark that in case Edgar was wondering, it's okay to shoot these guys, but their skin is incredibly thick and their shots aren't that effective. Suddenly Lopez is grabbed by one of them and is nearly taken away by the pterosaur, before Alan unloads a high amount of shells up at the creature's legs, forcing it to drop them. They again beg for weapons to defend themselves and are both given spares by Alan and Ellie. This infuriates Edgar, and the six of them now unload everything they've got onto their assailants. When the shooting is done, Edgar is unsurprised to see that both Sonia and Raul have turned their guns on our team, and lets Grant know that treating him like an idiot got them in a totally avoidable situation. But just before BioSyn's forces begin to tie InGen's team up, army vehicles race down the hillside demanding everyone in the area to freeze. After being told they're trespassing, Edgar lets it known that his people are with InGen, and tells them to call their commander and talk with him. But the leader of this outfit says that they have no radio, and that they operate in complete electronic silence, and that they're not exactly working with the general anyway. He tells them to shut up and that they'll make it quick and painless, which seriously disturbs Grant and the others, before one of the pterodactyls leaps back to life and knocks some of the soldiers back. Now is their chance, and the others grab hold of the weapons the men drop, and a firefight breaks out between these assassins. Edgar, Sonia, and Raoul shoot several armed men, while Alan, Ellie, and Muldoon lay back and observe the madness of such an event. The fighting leaves only one soldier left standing, who is ordered to surrender by all of the other attackers. He lets them know that they would have gotten out of here with the goods and away from this hellhole if they hadn't intervened, and tells them that he would have killed them personally before he's met with a bullet himself by Hammond's aid. Muldoon feels that this whole event is due to the green flame, and before they leave, the game warden makes sure to leave claw marks from the pterosaurs onto the bodies of soldiers, in a small effort to throw anyone off of their trail once the bodies are discovered. After discerning that there is no way that the two groups can survive on the island independently from one another with these renegade patrols, an unlikely alliance forms between both forces, and the now 6 of them set off on their search for the green flame, all aware of the treachery that could fall upon them at any time now within this pact. And after they leave, a lone pterodactyl stops by to clean up their mess. I was pretty entertained by the story in this one, and while we only got a few clues as to what exactly the military is doing on the island, I was actually a big fan of finally seeing another rendition of the pterodactylus make its return to the story, as the animal was originally featured in the first novel. The aerial tech was really fun, and the introduction of both Sonia and Raul Lopez is something I'm sure will set up a backstabbing later on in future issues. Now, I'm curious to hear what you guys thought about the story, and how you think this story is progressing so far. Personally, it feels a little predictable, but it does seem rather cool. We continue our adventure with the group making their way through the jungle, with a wild pair of eyes making sure to follow them on their journey. This band of rivals is close to reaching the green flame, and optimism seems to be the subject of conversation amongst the ranks, before Grant brings up the likelihood of the army following them after the battle that had just transpired. Edgar, Raoul, and even Muldoon let Grant know that in the jungle, kill or be killed is the only law though, and that putting his mind in such places will only slow them down. Sonia goes a step further, telling Grant to put a sock in it, and that bitching won't do any good about the situation, which spurs admiration in Hammond's trusted aide Edgar. Even though they're on opposite sides, the assassin lets Sonia know how much he approves of her attitude, before pulling out a map of Nublar to make a better plan as to what route they should take. The river seems to be the best choice for the group, and once they're done making this decision, the Tyrannosaurus presents itself to the unlucky humans. Quickly, all of the members of the team begin firing at the behemoth, and Muldoon screams that this seems to be the same Rex they ran into before. Everyone continues to fire at the dinosaur, while Edgar yells for Sonia to back up as the Rex is getting dangerously close to her. She tells the man that she can handle herself, before she is grabbed by the Tyrannosaur's mighty jaws. But the dinosaur has yet to bite down on the small tour guide, as the firing from the weapons is still assaulting its body. Sonia is still being badly injured, with each sinking tooth cutting its way into her while she lays in the mouth of the dinosaur. And while she's still trapped in its jaws, Alan Grant fires a shot directly at the eye of the tyrant, causing the animal to drop Sonia out of its mouth and retreat into the jungle. Sonia is recognized as being badly injured from the attack after Edgar examines the bite marks. He asks Grant if they could become infected through any septic means, but Alan says that they don't know enough of the animal to judge that just yet, although he has his doubts. While Engine's man is tending to Sonia's wounds, a clear admiration for the woman is seen, and he ends up helping her continue the journey himself by making his body as well as Raoul's a support for her to lean on. Meanwhile, the army seems to finally have found the aftermath of the previous firefight. Compies have begun eating the remains, and it seems clear that the pterosaurs were responsible for this attack from all of the claw marks on the soldiers. But after finding a bullet hole through the radio, these scouts still decide to call in their findings. While this is happening, the group comes across a maintenance shed that was marked on Hammond's map, and inside of the complex resides 2 rafts the group decides to use for their trek downriver. While making preparations for this voyage, Ellie and Alan debate on the trustworthiness of Edgar, as they view the man as rather cutthroat, and Sattler actually finds it hard to believe that John could have employed a man like that for his work. This leads into Sonia departing the group to get some walking done in an effort to strengthen her ankle after the attack. Edgar decides to volunteer a chaperone on her recess, and the two begin a conversation away from the others. Edgar states he's glad to have the woman with them here on Nublar, and Sonia remarks that she's lucky to have him here helping them survive as well. She makes it well known that he handled those soldiers just quick enough to save them all, and Edgar makes it known that he's a quick guy before demonstrating this himself. This is something the tour guide didn't expect, but it's not something she plans on turning down either. The sun begins to go down, and as soon as it sets, a patrol of choppers pass over this river, and when they've cleared, our protagonists begin paddling downstream. But it isn't long until they hear an unmistakable sound. Looking at it, Grant and the others, the Rex relishes in finding its fearful prey. Edgar shouts to the doctor if dinosaurs can swim before Dr. Grant exclaims that of course they can swim, but he doesn't even have to if the river isn't too deep. And into the water comes the Tyrannosaur, taking its time and walking along the bottom of the river and making its way closer to the rafts. When the water becomes too deep, the Rex drops its head down into the surface and begins swimming like a crocodile, which puts our band of corporate explorers in extreme peril. Muldoon tells the team to turn as the water begins to get shallow, but Grant tells everyone not to stop rowing, and that if they stop to change direction, that they will surely be overtaken. At this moment, the Rex strikes, barely missing the rafts and instead going down underneath the water. At this instant, everyone is puzzled, and Edgar leaves the comedic remark asking if dinosaurs could drown. Bubbles soon begin to show themselves in the water. Before the Tyrannosaur has come up from underneath the water to capsize the boats, and Muldoon now finds himself face to face with the beast. Immediately, everyone takes aim at the dinosaur and unload a huge amount of rounds at the creature's muzzle before it goes back under and away from their vision. Lucky for them, the dinosaur again retreats and exits the water it's just hunted in. A small celebration is carried out among the group before they all continue rowing in the hopes of getting closer to their intended target. Night eventually descends on Nublar, and everyone ends up reaching the base they have suspected to be after. This is where the green flame should have been the last time they saw it. Sure enough, a large military presence is observed around it, and Edgar takes it upon himself to get inside there and find out what exactly is going on. Sonia makes it known that she's coming with them, much to the assassin's disliking. The others stay back and keep a lookout on this strange complex. Before, there it is. Sonia and Edgar make their way into the base as stealthily as possible, and Hammond's team as well as Raoul debate on what this strange light show could possibly be. It's all a beautiful sight, up until gun barrels are felt behind the heads of these observers. The army has found them. The men tell their prisoners to make their way down the hill, where they will be promptly executed. Sattler can't believe she's hearing this from American soldiers, but the military insists that the green flame must absolutely be kept a secret to everyone. And while they're being escorted away and into their doom, the triumphant roar of a Rex can be heard somewhere in the hazy distance. I gotta say that I'm really enjoying this series so far. When I finished my Raptor series of reviews, I wasn't quite sure on where the plot would go, but I'm quite satisfied with how it's been turning out. Taking the elements from the first novel and incorporating them into the series is really fun, and the river attack sequence is one that many people have loved ever since its inclusion was made in Crichton's work from 1990. So far, I feel that the character progression and action in this issue is the best of the series as of yet, and I'm really looking forward to finding out what the green flame actually is. On a side note, I want to ask you guys if you're interested in seeing any of these ideas brought up in future Jurassic Park movies. These stories have a certain originality to them, but they're quite different than what we've seen so far on the big screen. Do any of you think ideas like the green flame and military occupation of one of InGen's islands could be a good inclusion in a new film? And if so, let me know, because this is getting to be unpredictable again, and I'm enjoying that aspect of it. Deep in the wilds of Nublar, our two remaining team members watch the one-eyed Tyrannosaur hunt outside of the compound, and make sure to observe its behavior as well as the Army's searchlight's direction before they make their move. Sonia lets Edgar know that even though they started out as enemies, it's ironic that the BioSyn and InGen operatives are going into hell side by side, and Edgar answers the sentiment with a well-meaning kiss. Now the pair make their move. While the Army is busy locating the Rex, Edgar throws a hook on top of this man-made barrier and begins to scale it, before a guard happens to notice his actions. But just for a moment. Edgar takes this corpse's uniform for himself and tells his partner to pull herself up before he's spotted by another soldier. Confusing Edgar with his fellow comrade, the man asks this assassin a question before getting a knife straight through his body. Sonia makes it known that she's no hunter of man to InGen's principal agent, his only response being that he is a pro. Our other protagonists are currently locked away deep within this alien compound. All of them have been through a lot, but Ellie has received a serious amount of torture from their captors. Assuming she was the weakest link, Dr. Sattler's questioning was carried out by excessive force in an effort to gather information, much to the dismay of Muldoon, and especially Alan Grant. All of them make their decisions to remain quiet and to not let a single word slip from their mouths in order to protect their interests, as well as those of the currently uncaptured Sonia and Edgar. Everyone agrees, except for Raoul. Grant calls out to the BioSyn scientist asking for an answer, but Raoul remains speechless, and possibly in a more grim shape than the rest of them. Suddenly footsteps are heard, and all of them tell each other to keep silent and act tough, until a familiar face opens the door to their prison. The team is ecstatic to see Edgar has found them in this hellhole, but immediately ask them to check up on Raoul before setting them free. InGen's operative walks over to the silent man and asks him how he's doing, before we hear the faint noise of a weak crack coming from Raoul's direction. Edgar turns his face to the others and woefully informs them that their teammate is dead. Edgar releases everyone else and tells them to move quickly, while Ellie can't help but to feel sorry for the paleontologist, who she feels probably died from a heart attack. Now outside, Muldoon alerts the others to a watchful guard, but Edgar lets them know it's only Sonia, who is seen observing the green lights of some unknown entity. Edgar asks what she's looking at, yet doesn't get a response. After this, everyone files out towards the fence and begin their ascension. Unfortunately, the group is spotted, and Edgar stays behind to provide cover fire for the others. Muldoon is the last to scale the wall and tells Edgar to just wait 5 seconds for him to get set up and provide cover for his fellow Engine alumni. The rescuer eventually makes his way over the wall, and all of them dart away from the base and into the jungles of the island. The soldiers are quick on the trail and run straight into the woods, where they find... It looks like One Eye has found his breakfast. Meeting up at a safe spot away from the base, a jeep is revealed to have been stolen from the soldiers. Sonia got it out and away from the base while Edgar freed the others. But before they make tracks, everyone decides to pile in and wait for dawn. When the sun eventually does come up, all of these renegades send out choppers, desperately looking for their prisoners. They know they can't stay undiscovered all day long, but Muldoon still thinks that they have the benefit of jeep trails being all around the surrounding jungle, as a good confusion amongst their own tire tracks. Dr. Grant now offers up an apology to Edgar Prather. He hasn't treated the man so well and wants to make it known that he's gracious for his help in escaping the compound, but Edgar tells him to forget it. Sonia also lets her admiration be known, which actually gets a smile from the sullen-faced operative, and the pair's relationship is finally shown amongst the others out in the open. Ellie questions Sonia away from the group and asks what Edgar is really like when he's not strictly in business mode, but she can't seem to get an answer from the tour guide. The subject of their conversation overhears this talk and asks what the ladies are going on about, but again, the question is deflected. Anywho, Edgar makes it known that since they couldn't find the secret of the green flame, he's calling the mission off, and says this will be their final day in Jurassic Park. The group stays back and rests before the journey home, and wait for patrols to pass in their silence, all the while enjoying every bit of scenery Nublar has to offer, until something unexpected happens to cross their path again. It's One Eye, and this time, he's clearly searching for the humans. Turning his head in their direction, the Rex lets out a deafening roar and prompts Edgar to tell everyone to scatter. The Rex is close to running down Ellie and Grant before Muldoon shouts at the beast to pay attention to him instead of the scientist. But it appears that this Rex has what's left of its sights set dead on Dr. Grant, and for good reason. Muldoon raises his gun and thinks on taking the risk of firing at the tyrant before seeing the choppers that are still close by. If he tries to save them, then they'll all go down. Still fleeing from the Tyrannosaur, Alan and Ellie run straight into a dead end. Their situation looks bad until the two press themselves up against the wall and become motionless, immediately confusing the Rex. Their knowledge on this animal seems to work, but Ellie's foot slips on the unstable ground. She nearly falls before Grant catches her, while the Rex bites forward blindly in an effort to kill these pesky humans. But without the stereo vision, it would appear that this hunter's aim is rather terrible. The two remain still again and become invisible to this creature's eye for a second time now, but he's not having it and starts biting at random points towards the pair. Dr. Sattler has had enough and grabs a hold of a rock nearby before hurling it at the muzzle of the Tyrannosaur, which causes the Rex to stand up in a full display and make the surrounding ground near his feet unstable as well. This sends the Rex tumbling down the hillside, a slow and disheartening development, with a final cry erupting from his mouth in angry defiance once he's reached the bottom. Still running, Edgar and Sonia reach the top of a different hill and ponder on where their allies may have fled to. Edgar uses this moment to ask his partner what the secret of the green flame is, which leaves Sonia confused and asking what exactly he means. Edgar lets it known that she reads the signs of nature, but he reads the signs of men, and tells her that he knows that she saw something in that compound. She tells him that he's letting his imagination run away, and that he really needs to get a grip. He tells her to get the same before she's shoved off the hill by Edgar and caught by the foot. He tells her not to worry, babe, that he's got her. But now it's time to talk. Talk or die. Sonia exclaims that he's crazy before she's met with an answer telling her that he has a job to do. Sonia has the same job though, and tells him that he won't kill her. But Edgar knows she doesn't really know the answer. If she talks, Sonia asks if Edgar will let her up, and he shares that that is indeed the deal. She starts talking, just before we cut away to Alan and Ellie hiking through the jungle and hearing an ungodly female scream. Muldoon and the others follow the noise, which leads them directly to Edgar, frantically asking what's happened. They're given the response of both members running, and Sonia's unfortunate fall. He says he couldn't save her. Choppers fly over this area during this encounter, and all questions are forfeit while everyone begins their escape. The choppers seem to have found an area of interest, but come across the Rex instead of their intended game. Eventually, everyone finally meets up at the path they all took once they began this expedition on the island. And once they enter the cave they all arrived in, put on their scuba gear, and make use of their underwater equipment they've left inside for their journey to Hammond's sub underneath the ocean. Even though they're unable to signal the vessel, they know it will be waiting for them there. Once inside, Edgar gives John Hammond a stern handshake with a smile. John lets him know that he looks rather pleased to see him, and Edgar responds that he very much so is. Ellie has been presently silent ever since Sonia died back on the hill, and makes it her goal to stay as far away from the engine employee as possible. Grant asks why she seems so solemn now in the face of their escape. She only replies with the name Edgar. Alan thinks that the man sure is something. Sonia's dead and he's still just as formal. Without the secret of the green flame, they don't have much to go off of, but maybe now they can clear those renegade soldiers out of there. Grant says he was wrong about the kind of man Edgar is after all, but Sattler doesn't agree. In fact, she says he's no man at all. I'm not going to lie, the moment Edgar pushed Sonia off of the cliff, I dropped the book in my hands and had my jaw nearly touching the floor. I want to actually talk about the writer now specifically, because I really think this was an incredible twist that really served the story well. Steve Englehart has put together a Jurassic Park story outside of the films and novels that I honestly believe to be highly compelling, extremely enjoyable, and filled with a high level of excitement, energy, and uncharted territory for this brand that is desperately needed in future installments of the series. I want to really praise this issue because I think it is very well deserved. A good sequel is something that takes risks. It's something that relies on the investment in its characters and something that builds upon existing lore. And this series is definitely doing that. I want to go ahead and say that at this point within the Return to Jurassic Park series, I am currently feeling that it is superior to its predecessor in the Raptor Comics storyline. Now of course these are just all of my opinions and not yours. I'm very interested to hear what all of you think about this series so far, and this issue in particular. I have no idea where this thing will go, but I am really looking forward to part 5. We begin our story during the events of the first Jurassic Park. Alan Grant and Hammond's other visitors have just landed on the island, and two researchers by the names of Abby and Derek continue to work within the laboratory of this modern wonder. After flirting a bit with the male scientist, Abby is able to get the man outside for a small walk, where the two encounter a small dinosaur that happily licks Derek's face like a dog out in the open. Even though the animal seems docile, Derek wonders what species it is, as well as why it's out of containment. The two then stumble upon a fellow scientist named Gustavus, who's presently loading several crates into his gas jeep. Derek wants to leave this guy alone due to his often run-ins with other members of staff resulting in the workers being fired, but Abby presses her date to ask him a few questions about what exactly the man is up to. Gustavus is angered by Derek's prying into his personal matters, however, and lets him know that he'll be out of a job by the end of the day if Gustavus gets his way. After seeing his superior pulling away, a surprised Derek sees that Abby has grabbed one of the cases that was in the man's jeep and decides to see what's inside. Both Abby and Derek are shocked to see that Gus has hidden dinosaur eggs inside of these cases, and the two ponder on this scientist's usual declaration of infertile eggs being disposed of by himself personally. It would seem that Gustavus has other uses for Jurassic Park's resources. After getting in a jeep themselves and rushing to their dorms in an effort to hide what they have found, the two are run off the road by Gustavus. After flying through the windshield and careening into a ditch, Gus reaches down to the subdued Derek to grab hold of his suitcase and cut the scientist across the face with a large knife before getting back to his jeep and speeding off to his own lodgings. The next day, Abby wakes Derek up on his day off, telling him that they both have a duty to find out what the rogue scientist is up to, and after a little convincing, the two are able to follow the doctor's trail into an area with a small compound that looks different from all of the other buildings. After walking inside, the two begin to take in the sight of a wide variety of small dinosaurs in cages that look far different to any of the creatures out on display in the open park. It would seem that Gustavus has been growing his own dinosaurs without Hammond's supervision, which prompts Derek to grab hold of a radio and let his other colleagues hear about it, before Derek is shot by the now returned geneticist. Holding them at gunpoint, Gustavus tells both of his peers that they will die after being witness to his glorious work. He has created new, unique, and incredible animals that the world has never seen, such as the Ouranosaurus with a high intelligence and dexterity, as well as the Avimimus with plumage, and his own watchdog-sized trike along with tameable pterodactyloids. His most precious creation, it would seem, however, is Gideon, a small hypsilophodon-like creature similar to a Drysaur. His work has been centered on creating a superior race, one that he can play God as that will position him as overseer of a new genetic revolution. Once the two of them are disposed of, that is. But Abby and Derek tell the man that he would never get away with such an act, as their bodies would surely be found and an investigation carried out. But Gus has thought ahead of time for such a result, and says that the carnivores will be getting a little variety in their diets today. If you were surprised by the story I just went over today, then don't worry, you're not alone. I was kind of shocked to read such an odd tale after reading through the green flame arc of this run. Unfortunately, it turns out that the Return to Jurassic Park story that we previously were going over has actually completed. I guess after the news came out that The Lost World was getting made, they pulled the plug on the Return series and instead decided to do something completely different so that they wouldn't step on Spielberg's toes. I'm also under the impression that they did this to specifically be able to adapt The Lost World into comic book form, which ultimately they did as well. Now I know that this new direction is going to be something controversial to a few of you, but hey, I'm just the messenger. Had it been my say-so, I think all of you know that I would have really supported the direction that the story was going in, and would really have loved to see them dedicate themselves to resolving characters like Edgar Prather, and actually letting the readers know what the hell the Green Flame was, but it looks like that information will never be known. I'm really upset to even see the comic take this turn, because honestly, it's a really big middle finger to those that were invested. But hey, who knows? Maybe this new direction will have its own unique story that we'll all look back on fondly. But it probably doesn't. To put it lightly, I really don't like this issue. It's one of the weakest ones I've covered so far out of all of the comics, and as of now, I really don't care what happens. It's all a bunch of hybridized mad scientist Saturday morning cartoon stuff, and it really feels like the name Jurassic Park is just being slapped on for brand recognition, but whatever. They could prove me wrong and deliver something awesome. Hey guys, Clayton from the future here to fill you in on what exactly is going on. So to make a long story short, the green flame that we've been going over here actually did get explained. But I didn't learn about it until after I made these old reviews in 2017. So get this, Steve Englehart explained this back in 2008 and said that the green flame was created as an homage to Joe Staton, who drew those issues and had previously drawn Green Lantern Corps with Steve. Now in that stuff, they use a green power, and the specifics of the green power in Jurassic Park were left deliberately vague, but it was supposed to be a little homage and connection to the Green Lantern stuff. Now the story after this, before it was canceled by The Lost World, was supposed to go in a direction where Lex and Tim come back, and Lex had apparently smuggled 2 Procom Signathus eggs off of Isla Nublar. The eggs hatch and they start terrorizing their hometown. Dr. Grant, Ellie Sattler, and Edgar Prather show up to clean up the mess, and John Hammond is seen hiding from the United States government. Now, I don't think I remember the specifics, but there might have even been one scene where a bunch of guys surround Hammond's house, and he just grabs a Tommy gun or something and straight up mows them down before they're able to get him. No, I am not making that up.
At no expense.
Now, as far as the new storyline goes, the Green Flame stuff is sort of kind of connected with the Gustavus character and his ideas about creating a superior species with little hints of extraterrestrial imagery. But that's the only real connection we have to the earlier material. With that being said, the Abby character is kind of interesting to make a note of, because as soon as I saw the first trailer for Jurassic Park Survival from Saber, it made me think of Abby in this series. In the actual canon of the films and that game, it'll be interesting to find out if there are other survivors on the island like there are in this storyline, but yeah, just something to think about before the new game comes out. Now, we last left off with Gustavus holding Derek and Abby at gunpoint after the revelation is made that the scientist has been producing personal hybridized dinosaurs for himself. While this event is happening, the tropical storm has just begun to hit the island, and every staff member of the park is dropping what they are doing in order to leave now. Gus revels in his capture of these 2 prying doctors and begins to savor the idea of killing them now of all times. The hurricane will make an excellent cover for their disappearance, and his job will become that much easier. Suddenly, the ground from beneath Gus's lap begins to shake, and the dirt around his base of operations becomes unstable once water demotes it to mud in this intense weather. He fires his gun and misses, hitting a large glass containing a fetus. All the while, the dinosaurs begin to break free, and our protagonists dart away into safety. Hopping in one of the jeeps outside, Abby and Derek make a run for it, but are soon greeted by the hooting of a Dilophosaur. This additional agent causes Derek to slip off of the road and collide with a tree. Quickly abandoning their vehicle, the 2 begin to make a climb for the main road, where they are greeted by Gustavus himself. Derek begs Gus not to throw his career away by killing them, but the mad scientist lets him know that the protection of his work is precisely why he has to. During this brief moment, the full-grown Dilophosaur reveals itself to the humans and begins to tear into Gus's arm. Throwing his body wildly, the Dilophosaurus makes the perfect window of opportunity for the park workers to escape. Stealing Gus's jeep while the doctor is preoccupied, the 2 race off and away from further harm, but soon grab the attention of another dinosaur. This time, the hissing of an Edaphrosaurus can be heard coming from behind them. Now the creature is in full pursuit, in chase of its prey during their desperate flight. Derek opens the glove compartment of the Wrangler and pulls out a flare gun that he fires at the small carnivore, effectively stopping it in its tracks. Feeling that the area was unsafe to traverse in the storm, the two arrive back at the lab of the crazed scientist they've just evaded, and search for the radio he has inside of these lodgings. Once they walk in, Derek is immediately greeted by one of the pterodactyloids that lands on his shoulder in a respectful manner. All of these tiny creations are now free, and each dinosaur begins to ransack the lab during this time of chaos. Interestingly, Gideon seems to have procured the madman's handgun, and seems to like walking about with it. Unable to make a distress call out to anyone, Derek declares the device to be dead, until an ominous voice replies, saying that the line just needs to be reconnected. There, standing in the doorway, is a badly injured Gustavus, angry and ready to destroy these two idiots for causing this mess. Gus grabs hold of the radio and gives his location to a rescue chopper, letting them know that they'll only need medical attention for one. During this call, the small dinosaur seems to be playing with the weapon in a curious manner. Getting worried for their safety as well as the creatures, Abby calls it over to her in an effort to take hold of the weapon. Gus finds this incredibly stupid, up until the dinosaur actually starts to bring her the pistol. Seeing this event, Gus screams at the dinosaur, telling it to stop and not give her the weapon, which frightens the tiny hybrid and causes it to pull the trigger and shoot Gustavus straight in the chest. The dying words of Gus speak of the inevitable betrayal that he knew his creations would eventually partake in, and during his death throes, the ground begins to shake beneath this metal shack. Quickly, the pair of scientists leap out of the building and watch it crumble into the ocean, while they hang on for dear life to the side of the cliff. After reaching the top, it would seem that their troubles are yet to be over. The Dilophosaur has found the humans and begins to snap at them during their struggle. At this time, the helicopter arrives and lets down a line for the two of them to be pulled up and away to, where they then observe the cruel beast look out to them on this dark night. They may have gotten away, but the secrets of Gustavus' mad science seems to forever be lost at sea, and all the little dinosaurs he spliced together are now drowning in the wild waves of Jurassic Park's final hours. While I still believe that the Green Flame arc was vastly superior to this new addition to the series, I will say that it at least does its job as far as giving the audience dinosaur action in this issue. Seeing a full-grown Dilophosaurus as well as the very rare Edaphrosaur was rather fun, and the crazed image of Gus's bloody face is something that I doubt we will be seeing much of in any form of Jurassic Park media in the future. This story is, if anything, extremely campy, and the image of the small hybrid dinosaur fumbling around with a handgun and then shooting the bad guy is something that I really find goofy and on the same level as Raptor Gymnastics and Dreams. I will say that I had a much better time with this entry than the last one though, and do think that this will shape up to be an interesting part of the Jurassic Park universe, if anything. I'm curious to hear what all of your opinions are on the story and would love to know what you all think about this issue as well. Now, we last left off with Derek and Abby narrowly escaping an encounter with the crazed scientist Dr. Gustavus. We left the island by chopper during a horrible storm that hit Isla Nublar during the events of the first film. Now we return to the island, during the events of the Jurassic Park Raptor storyline. While flying over the island, we get introduced to two new soldiers accompanying Abby and Derek. These two make light jokes about the stupidity and inferior survival skills of these ancient beasts, which leads to disagreement and constant moans from Abby. They're heading back here to clean up the mess left in the wake of Dennis Nedry's betrayal, and think the world of this incredible place that was once called Jurassic Park. Once they land on the island, our pair of scientists meet up with General West. Those who've been watching my Jurassic Park comics reviews for a while should remember that this is the man in charge of putting the dinosaurs back under control on the island. Both parties seem to get off on a rocky start, with the military and scientific careers of each group coming at odds with one another, but nevertheless, work must be done. The two begin their work by herding up a few Ouranosaurs. While doing this, Derek lets Abby know that her constant bickering should be toned down a bit on this adventure, in fear of it getting them into hot water again. But his partner doesn't seem to listen, and instead gives her full attention to something she sees through a set of binoculars. Apparently, the two soldiers that rode with them to the island are getting a great start to the day by taking a ton of pictures of the dinosaurs. This confuses Derek, who lets it known that if they get caught doing such a thing after signing the same no photos agreement that everyone else must adhere to, that could mean buying themselves a one-way ticket off of the island. This bit of information gives Abby a really fun idea. Elsewhere on Nublar, a Triceratops is on the move and makes a full-on charge for an army jeep. General West and a fellow soldier fall out of the vehicle and ready themselves for a follow-up attack. West orders his man to trank the trike, but the soldier remains motionless, paralyzed with fear. With the dinosaur charging closer and closer, West grabs hold of the gun from his man and fires a dart into the beast at the last second. Angered at his team and confused by the situation, the general wants answers as to what exactly made the docile herbivore attack them out of nowhere. Another soldier fills West in on an unfortunate event that seems to have passed. It would appear that the jeep that they were traveling in ran over the nest the Triceratops' offspring were in, leaving the mother with dead infants in her roost. Understanding what's actually happened leaves West with a deeply sympathetic view on the situation, and puts him in a bad mood, cursing on his trek out of the area. Once away from this site, the generals met with Abby and Derek, who've stopped by to give the man some information he should know about. Abby fills West in on a major security breach that Nublar is dealing with, one that has to do with unsolicited pictures from his own men. In West's office, both men can't believe such accusations are being made against them. While putting their case before the general, the two suggest that this whole ordeal may have started when Abby made a pass to one of them that was quickly deflected. This gets the wanted rise out of the scientist, but also leads to a full-on inspection of every bit of clothing in effect from the two men. After a full search has been conducted, no camera or evidence of film can be found amongst any of their equipment. After that, one of the soldiers suggests that Abby herself may have been acting suspiciously earlier. West decides to search her quarters as well. Unfortunately for her, a camera and film are found in her lodgings, and such a discovery can only lead to one thing, which is total banishment from the project and island. Abby makes a loud uproar for the camera being obviously planted in her room, and Derek even speaks up for the girl to back up these arguments, but is quickly shut up once the general asks a man if he'd like to join Abby in being escorted off of Nublar. Needless to say, this does not impress the girl. Boarding the chopper now for her trip home, Abby is greeted with the two soldiers she just ratted out. These two men express great joy in the irony of such an ordeal. Knowing that the two would never leave their real photos and camera in her room, Abby decides to search the chopper for anything that wouldn't look suspicious. The mailbag is the first thing that catches her eye, and in a quick test of her theory, she throws it out of the chopper, which leads to her escorts becoming absolutely agitated. They turn back and put the chopper down on a rough patch of the island. Carefully carrying tranq darts, the three walk out and into the open in search of the mailbag that holds their photographs. And in an instant, Abby attacks both soldiers and runs back to her lodging. One of the soldiers attempts to stop the girl by firing a tranq dart at her, but fortunately misses. Feeling lonely and worthless, Derek spends the rest of his day thinking about what just happened, until he gets a knock on his door accompanied with an all too familiar voice. Once the door is opened, Abby takes hold of Derek's arm and pulls him out of his room and into a wild chase. She lets him know that this is his chance to redeem himself, and that together, they're going to prove her innocence. The immediate jump in time from the events of the first movie to the beginning of the Raptor storyline I reviewed earlier really took me by surprise when I first started this issue, until I remembered that the stories featuring Betty, Celia, and Alf started just 3 days after the dinosaurs broke out in the first place. I will say that I was at first under the impression that the Derek and Abby storylines were unconnected with the other canon that Topps had created, and thought that these last few issues of the Return series could be standalone and unrelated. Honestly, I'm quite happy that they're not, because this gives us a chance to revisit some of the characters and events of previous issues. In all of the different canons of Jurassic Park, the Topps comic universe seems to really be something unique, and quite honestly bold. Even if this issue was kind of uneventful, I really do enjoy the overall direction that they've taken the books in. This is a continuity that seems pretty fun and very different to what we would get in the films and novels. They take off, straight for the site where Abby dropped the bag, deep in the jungles of Isla Nublar, the former site of Jurassic Park itself. While our protagonists are off searching for the film, both soldiers give General West their version of what's just happened. After hearing that the girl had apparently attempted to crash the chopper the men were in, a very skeptical West tells his men to wait by the helicopter while the others search for Abby, whom these upstanding men have said fled off to the dorms. After the general leaves, these liars begin their walk into the jungle. If they don't get to that film before the girl does, then they may be in more trouble than they'd bargained for. It isn't too long before the two come across a lone Stegosaurus grazing. This docile creature seems to be blocking the men's only accessible path, so after some rather illogical thinking, the two decide to push the dinosaur over in a manner similar to cow tipping. Unfortunately for them, this Stegosaurus responds by swatting at the pair with its spiked tail, destroying a tree and forcing them back in the process. During their retreat, the men begin to tumble down a steep hill, which pushes them deeper into the wilds of this island. While this is happening, Abby and Derek come across a juvenile Ouranosaur on their journey. The dinosaur seems to have been separated from its herd and opts to follow the pair during their search, much to the displeasure of Derek. It is at this point that the three of them are assaulted with several tranq darts getting fired nearby. Luckily dodging all of the darts, the two humans and the dinosaur run deeper into the jungle, where they just so happen to locate the mailbag. It seems to have landed in the middle of some dinosaurs' nesting grounds, but as soon as this discovery is made by our heroes, the two soldiers arrive to take it from them. One of the men makes a move for the bag, before the Ouranosaur leaps onto the soldier and pins him to the ground. A fight breaks out between these would-be photographers and the young beast before another animal presents itself to the group. A full-grown Parasaurolophus bellows at the intruders who invaded its nest, and in an instant, Abby, Derek, and the Ouranosaur take off running from the site. The two soldiers stay back and decide to tranquilize the animal that has arrived to shoo them out of its territory, and in a truly stupid display of incompetence, the soldiers actually shoot a tranq dart at the dinosaur, which causes it to fall directly on the traitorous men. These two aren't injured per se, but find themselves pinned to the ground and trapped under the bulk of this prehistoric clone, while Abby and Derek happen to be free with the mailbag in hand. This all leads to the other members of the armed forces showing up in an effort to free these men from underneath the dinosaur. Once the scientists are able to find General West and explain what exactly went down, and what the contents of this bag really hold. Despite all of this, the General still states that the evidence can easily be weighed against Abby with no clear indication as to whether or not she simply planted the film in the soldier's effects to clear her name, thus giving the General one final idea in getting to the truth of this whole ordeal. It would seem that a tabloid's information was found along with the film of Jurassic Park's secret attractions, and after a quick phone call with the owner of the establishment is made, the two villains in this story finally get what's coming to them. After such a long drawn-out day of adventure, Derek confronts Abby alone during a sunset on the island. He apologizes for not being there for her earlier, but also makes it known that he feels genuinely drawn to the girl after everything they've been through. And in a peaceful embracing of his fellow scientist, Derek is greeted with the hot, wet tongue of the young Ouranosaur blocking his lips from Abby's. Again, Derek must put up with the constant admiration of Jurassic Park's wildlife, which gets him some well-earned humor thrown his way by the girl he's become attached to. And as the sun finally sets on Isla Nublar, their story comes to a close, ending the second arc of the Return to Jurassic Park series. Even though one final issue remains, this in fact concludes both of these characters' involvement in the comics. To say their story was different to what we usually see is an understatement. The second part of the Return series is one of the more campy and less serious tales told within the franchise, and also one that I'm sure many of you were unaware of even existing until I began reviewing it. In my honest opinion, this is actually an okay story that I think a lot of kids will probably love, but I personally was looking for something more along the lines of the Green Flame tale that we were teased with during the first 4 issues of the comic. I really enjoy the story with Edgar Prather and the rogue soldiers on Nublar, and it's a pretty big drag that the plug was pulled on it back in the day. Like I said, I do think that its replacement was totally fine, but it's just not what I expected after reading all 10 issues of the Raptor storyline, and of course the first half of this particular series. Now the final issue actually takes us even further back into the past with a very awesome character that happens to be a part of a lot of badass stuff in these books, if I do say so myself. Robert Snap Your Neck Muldoon is coming back in the final issue of Return to Jurassic Park, along with Hamid and Nedry.
Hey guys, welcome to the final part of the Return to Jurassic Park comic series. It's been a really weird one, but hey, I've gotten a lot of enjoyment out of it. In the last issue of this run, a ton of artists got to work on the comic, with each individual doing their own artwork on different pages. So each page that I go through in this book is actually done by a totally different artist, which is something that I think is pretty neat. Like I said in the last video, this story takes place before the events of the first movie and features JP's park warden himself, Robert Muldoon. And with all that said, let's finish this thing. We begin our story with the Kenyan hunter and a new character walking about the park. Muldoon is cautious about a new protocol this guy named Murillo wants to put in place on the island. Murillo thinks Robert's just paranoid about everything on Nublar, and says that it's going to go just fine. Muldoon knew this new project was headed his way, but didn't know that it would be put in place 2 months ahead of schedule, and one can never be too cautious in Jurassic Park. Meanwhile, at Central Command, some technicians ready their systems for launch by prepping the Triceratops and Stegosaurus pins. Immediately, Murillo's design rounds up these dinosaurs and sends them to where the men want them to go. A thin mesh in the ground is explained to put out a mild electrical jolt, forcing them to only move where shocks would be avoidable, proving to be a really good way at herding the animals to any location they want. Some park workers rally around the fences and radio into headquarters, giving the good news that the test run has proven a success, until the alarm system for fence failure begins to be heard. A supervisor peers over the shoulder of a technician asking which fences have been affected, but is met with only frightened silence. After boasting on its success in building such a flawless system, Murillo gets the bad news that the Rex is out of containment, along with herds of Stegos and Trikes, and it looks like the Tyrannosaur is making its way towards the herbivores for lunch. The park employees have no idea how to proceed, and scream for someone to find Nedry. Tossing rocks in the ocean, a very bitter Dennis begins to wonder why he even works at Jurassic Park. He thinks this place wouldn't even exist if it weren't for his expertise, and just wants that cheapskate Hammond to pay him something worth all the hours that he works his ass off for. Feeling unsatisfied with the weather on this day that he'd been able to sneak away, Nedry picks himself up and hears the roar of the Rex in the distance, thinking that the others had decided to fire up the paddocks without him. But back in the park, a very different event happens to be playing out, one that hasn't been seen for millions of years. Muldoon knew trouble was always possible in this hellhole no matter who was in charge, and figures that the electric shocks may have sent the Rex into a pretty pissed mood. He rides alongside Murillo on their way back to handle the situation, before a herd of Stegosaurs darts out of the jungle and collides with the jeep they're using. Back on the beach, an agitated Nedry decides to walk back to the park, totally upset with his placement here, and wanting nothing more than a huge pay raise that would make this job worth going to, when suddenly the man notices a rustling sound ahead of him. Running faster than he ever had in his entire life, Nedry desperately tries to evade these giants that have decided to flock his way. And meanwhile, back at the wreck site, Muldoon confirms Murillo's passing and gets himself back to the road in an effort to do his job. Quickly locating fellow workers, he jumps in the jeep and sets off for the Rex. Luckily, Nedry seems to have survived this brush with death, and after picking himself up, wonders if there could be a lawsuit somewhere in this odd encounter. Back at Control, Beta's team is said to have the Trikes under control, with the Stegos now moving towards the beach, and it would seem that their day is getting a little bleaker when a familiar helicopter decides to drop by, with its owner interested in seeing how his theme park is running today. Elsewhere, Muldoon has located the Stegosaurs and proceeds to trank the beasts. It takes some time, but the dinos finally drop. Feeling lucky this part of the mission went so smoothly, Muldoon hopes that the Rex cooperates just as well, before a sound of trees snapping by his ear is picked up. Stepping on the car and killing the other workers, the Rex now makes its way for the tranked Stegosaurs, and makes a decent meal out of the free food. Muldoon walks himself directly to the tyrant and raises his rifle towards the animal. This gets the Rex's full, undivided attention, and Muldoon gives the Rex the same level of respect. Hammond is furious. How any of this insanity happened is beyond him. He wants to know why the hell Muldoon is playing high noon with his Rex, while the park is in total chaos. And after a sly remark from the fat slop that programmed this tourist attraction is made, Hammond snaps even further, asking Dennis if he'd like to run what he's just said by him again. Nedry was just commenting on the possibility of rats eating through the cables, however, which puts John in a bit of a calmer mood. Dennis feels that no real harm is done, and Hammond should just relax because all of the dinos are back in their pens. This sets the billionaire off again. 2 men are most certainly dead, at least one Stegosaur mauled to death, and Nedry has the gall to tell him that everything is fine. Dennis uses the time to ask for a bonus after his brilliant rat explanation is given, which makes Hammond quite unhappy with his decision to hire such a man for this project. Muldoon looks down on the captured Rex with deep understanding. He knows he was damn lucky to get out of this situation so easily this time, but that's just because old Rexy was out of practice. He won't ever underestimate him during these encounters, but won't ever let him get to his head either. John now walks up to Robert, demanding an explanation. A bandaged Muldoon tells the park owner not to start with him after such a rough day. Hammond calms down a bit and says today was a big screw-up, but also lets Robert know that it was a pretty stupid stunt that he pulled with the Rex on the beach. Muldoon only answers this statement with one of his own, saying it could have been a lot worse. John can't believe he's hearing this, and asks how his warden figures that, with the final line being that of Robert Muldoon stating that we could have had those little babies on the loose. Now that was awesome. This is one of my favorite comics that I've come across so far that Topps has put out, and I really enjoy what they've done in here. A simple standalone story about Muldoon and the other characters of the first movie getting some dinos back into their pens. Cool, badass, and fun. I really enjoyed all of the artwork for this story too. It's awesome to see how many talented people put their efforts together to tell such an entertaining story. And everyone in the book actually felt like themselves too. Nedry, Hammond, Muldoon, they all come across just as they would in the 1993 movie. And that's something I'm super happy about. Now, this book had a lot of cool little things in the pages that I thought would be fun to talk about as well, like the employee wearing the shirt with the bat symbol and number 4 written on it. Oh, if they only knew.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
Alright, so that was the Return to Jurassic Park storyline. Definitely a bunch of ups and a bunch of downs. I personally believe that the early stuff, the first 4 issues, is really fun as its own sort of pulpy 1960s or 70s style Doug McClure film sequel to the Jurassic Park Raptor story. It's very entertaining, it goes in some bold directions, it incorporates BioSyn and a lot of ideas from Michael Crichton's book, but at the end of the day, the fact that nothing was resolved and that they were also leaning on that whole Green Lantern like storyline in the background is kind of weird for Jurassic Park, but I will admit I had a good time with it. It reminded me a lot of The Chaos Continues, which was a Super Nintendo game that was basically like its own sequel to the first Jurassic Park movie. I will not lie, I think that there is a lot of potential for a future live action film that could cut back and forth between like something set in 1994 and to the present day, and I love the idea of Dr. Grant being back on Nublar, back in that time period with the gun, going Rampage Edition on some people or dinosaurs. I don't know if they could ever pull that off, but I will just throw that out there. I really enjoyed the early stuff in this series. Now, the Abby and Derek stuff was a little wonky, but I am very interested to see where Jurassic Park Survival goes because Maya Joshi's character seems pretty similar to what they were doing here. Now, with that being said, there is also additional other Tops storylines that we could go over in the future if you guys are interested in. They did an adaptation of the Lost World Jurassic Park. They did a couple more prequel stories, and there's also one where the Dilophosaurs get off of the island and start terrorizing a biker gang. So yeah, I've talked about all of that stuff in the past, guys, but I could do a supercut in the future if you want me to. Now, as far as the last issue goes, who does not like to see Robert Muldoon going after the T-Rex and the T-Rex breaking out and attacking Stegosaurs and destroying Jeeps and stuff? It's awesome. I mean, like, that's one of the coolest things you could ever possibly want out of this whole Jurassic Park stuff from the mid-90s. But yeah, guys, that is everything as far as like the connective tissue with the Return to Jurassic Park / Raptor Jurassic Park storylines. Like I said, there are a couple of early prequel things that we could talk about soon. Let me know if you'd like to see that in the comments down below. As far as the story goes, I had a good time with it, but I want to hear what all of your thoughts are. So whatever your own opinions happen to be, I'd love to hear all about them in the comments down below. Now, before I go, I want to thank everyone that's helped me build my channel over the years. I'd also like to thank every one of you guys who've watched my stuff. You've all been extremely cool to me. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like and hope that you'll consider subscribing. God bless you all. Christ is King. See you guys in the next video, and as always, take it easy.